next few verses are about the teachings of the Buddha, about how they heal us from the passions. I'm not quite sure how they follow on from what went before and how they connect with what comes afterwards. The verses before this were to do with establishing that things have no intrinsic nature, not just things, but all entities, all individuals. They actually have no essential nature, no self-nature. But there's an apparent plethora of individuals, of objects, of entities. So perhaps the connection is, what's been established in these next few verses is that there's only one teaching, although there are many ailments. So let's have a look. Verse 610. The physician varies his treatment according to diseases, though there is no difference in the principle of healing. The difference comes from varieties of diseases. So when you look at Buddhism, it's a vast, complex thing. But there's really only one fundamental principle. And that's the principle of enlightenment. Now, as I think I mentioned, what's being presented here is a conventional understanding. As enlightenment practitioners, it helps to look a little bit deeper and to tease out a more pertinent understanding, a more immediate understanding. So the physician here is the enlightenment practitioner. And the diseases are the various manifestations of ignorance which the enlightenment practitioner has to deal with in their own enlightenment practice. I wonder if you've ever had the experience where you felt some sort of epiphany, that you felt a kind of breakthrough, that you've got a handle on it all. And then the very next day, or even later in the same day, you can be in one of the deepest of hells. Now, it's not to say that your epiphany or your insight was limited or mistaken. It's just that another challenge has come along. Yeah, it has to be dealt with. This is enlightenment practice. There are infinite situations, an infinite variety of manifestations that we have to deal with. And every one of these situations, if we're an enlightenment practitioner, it has to be extricated from in a unique, fresh way. We can't just apply the same technique to all situations. And this is the value of this. This is the value of this challenge. Because if we could just apply the same technique, then the realization would not be fresh. It would be stale. We need to come back to realization in a new way each time. Insight is continually deepening. We can't just come back to the same insight. It has to be deepened. Realization is continuously unfolding. It's like the lotus flower. We talk about enlightenment or realization as if it's one thing. We must be careful about this. This is why I talk about enlightenment practice. Enlightenment is not a goal. Enlightenment is ongoing realization. It's not a nice cozy space that you can plonk yourself in while the world goes on all around you. It's something that must be proactively turned towards, no matter what is going on. And that's the big challenge. That's the big challenge. Verse 611. In like manner, in order to save generations of beings from their disease of passions, with which they are ill, I teach people with my doctrines, knowing the power of their senses. So conventionally, whoever's written these verses is looking back and seeing that the teachings of the Buddha carry on through generations. But actually, we can take this much more literally. The generations of beings. This is the generation of our moods. Each mood we're in is a different being. We're not the same person 24/7. We have a pattern, perhaps, a pattern of moods which we fuel. So this is a generation of beings. And they're ill from the disease of passions. So as enlightenment practitioners, this is what we're working with. We're working with the power of our passions. And these passions, this is the habit energy with which we fuel our moods. We tend to be very self-righteous about our moods, as if we're entitled to indulge them. It always strikes me as quite remarkable when you see people doing this. Indulging a mood, it might be one of anger or resentment, as if they're entitled to do so. It's quite interesting to pull people up now and again about this. It's possible they feel they have got a complaint or there's something that's upset them, but that doesn't justify their behaviour. But never mind other people. That justification comes from the senses, from the power of the senses. The senses, when we're caught up in them, when we're caught up in the power of the senses, then we're caught up in the belief of the reality of the world. The belief in the reality of the world. And this is what all the verses up to this point have been undermining. The reality of the world. And the story of the senses, which are supposed to be revealing this external world. So again, as enlightenment practitioners, the prescription is to be aware of this. To be aware not only of our particular moods, but how we fuel them. And we fuel them with reference to the external world. The world is like this, or it's done this to me, therefore I am entitled to indulge this mood. The world is a terrible place, therefore I am entitled to be angry or depressed about it. As enlightenment practitioners, that's a no-go. We don't take our cue from the world. We don't indulge our moods. We step back from them. It's very difficult. But as enlightenment practitioners, you've had some insight into this. You have the option of turning your mind once again to this insight and into the realization once again of pure awareness. It's very difficult, but hopefully these videos can help with this, at least for a short time. So verse 612 points us in a particular direction. My doctrine does not vary, but the passions and powers are differentiated. There is just one vehicle. Auspicious is the eightfold path. So the doctrine does not vary. Enlightenment practice does not vary. It's all about disengaging from the moods, from the passions, and turning once again to the realization of mind itself, or the essential nature of awareness. And it's the essential nature of the awareness that is hearing this. You have a direct hotline to it. So the passions and the powers are differentiated. These are the different situations which press our buttons. What is it that presses our buttons? What is it that triggers road rage or its equivalent? What sends us into shrieks of indignation? These are the passions and the powers which come about through daily life, the variety of situations in which we can find ourselves. So that's the situation, that's what we deal with. But now we've got this lovely phrase at the end, auspicious is the eightfold path. And we've got an opportunity now to look at the eightfold path, which I'll do in the next video.